My name is Nozipho Dlali. I grew up in South Africa in a small town called Fort Beaufort. I'm a child of a single parent. She raised me with the help of her mom and dad, my grandparents.
Yes, we can, sure we can change the world.
Welcome to the YALI Voices podcast, your home for sharing the best stories from the Young African Leaders Initiative Network. Be sure to subscribe to the YALI Voices podcast and visit yali.state.gov to stay up to date on all things YALI. Growing up in South Africa, Nozipho Dlali witnessed firsthand the unfairness and injustice of poverty and the ways in which institutions were used to keep individuals and families mired in its grip. As a child, she resolved to do something to help those for whom the cycle of poverty and the justice system combined to inflict the greatest hardships. In this edition of the YALI Voices podcast, Nozipho talks about her awakening on the issue and how she came to play a role in providing equal justice for her community.
I actually knew when I was about 5, because like I said, I knew that I wanted to study law because firstly, before I went and stayed with my mom, I stayed with my grandparents. Now, I come from a family of teachers. So my grandmother was a school principal in a very tiny primary school in a farm area. So they had about 2 classes. They were made of cow dung. And in one class, you had your grade 1s until grade 3, I think, and then grade 4 until grade 7. So she was the principal of the school. But now this is a farm. And what would happen is that during orange season, it was an orange farm. They planted oranges and lemons. So during picking season, she'd have to shut down the school and the kids would have to go and harvest. And she was living in this very minute and small little house. And that's where for me, I saw this is not fair. You know, there was a form of injustice to all of it. And the poverty that I got to see and experience firsthand, because, I mean, being in that kind of school, that really tells you that they were not paid properly. So for me, I knew I wanted to do something about it, but I didn't understand what. Until I got to grade 7, I went to a grade school and they brought a lawyer at our school and he was talking about the whole process of studying law and the cases that he's dealt with. And then I knew when I was 13, this is what I want to do. So even when I was studying and I was choosing my classes and my subjects at school, I knew I wanted subjects that will enable me to be able to study law. So I wanted to go study law at a university that actually had a full-bodied experience in terms of law, and even the lecturers, you'll find that those would be people that are practicing. And so, yeah, I studied there. The funny thing about the university was it also reinforced to me why also I wanted to be in this field, because we stayed in reses where the black students had their own reses and the white students had their reses. So I became very involved in student politics and just getting involved in getting into positions that will enable me to be able to be the voice of students at the university as well. It was very difficult because, like I said, the university that I studied in, we had 2 languages of instruction. You had what was called the Afrikaans classes, which, if you know anything about South African history, in 1976, the reason why there was an uprising by the young people and so many young people got killed was because they were trying to get the language Afrikaans out of schools. Now comes Nozipho in 2013 and studies at a university where it still has 2 mediums of instructions, which is Afrikaans and English. You found that it was very different on how lectures were conducted. And you'd find that the black students were struggling to graduate because even the content of the work is not explained as clearly as what you call the Afrikaans class, students. And even the pass rate in terms of passing in record time, you'd also see it. It would affect. You'd see that many of the black students wouldn't pass in record time and many of the white students would pass in record time. But you had to fight for it, because they came up with all kinds of systems to remove black students. You'll find that they'll say, okay, if you fail this amount of courses, we remove you from the faculty. So I had to fight very hard to stay there because I knew what I wanted and I knew that I'm going to get it at this university that so-called has 20% pass rate in terms of the law faculty. So I fought for it. I did my articles to become as a Kenyan attorney in a very prestigious firm. I actually went to one of the oldest firms in the Free State or Bloemfontein, in fact, in the country, because it's over 100 years. And same situation there, you can feel that the amount of exposure and information that you get with your white counterparts is not the same. And then on top of that, I'm a black woman. If I can even tell a story of what happened with me, there was a time whereby they were retrenching people because they felt that they couldn't afford to pay people and the economy is going down. And I was fortunate because I knew what I wanted and I knew that I'm going to keep my head down because I need the information that they have for me to be able to succeed. There was a time whereby in the law firm, it was only myself as a Kenyan attorney, the personal assistant, which is what your article clerks that have been admitted now to become attorneys. It was him. And then my boss, the director that I was working for, were the three of us blacks left at the law firm. And they fired, basically, okay, to be politically correct, they retrenched everyone else. So it hasn't been an easy journey for me, even when I started work. But I didn't go to that law firm because I wanted to eventually become a director there. I went there because I wanted to learn the skills that I needed for me to be able to go back and work for my people. So immediately when I got admitted in the attorney's role, I left them. And I went and looked for work at an organization that's a non-profit. So I worked for government because we were funded by government. So we were forming part of an internal structure in a government department. So I work for the Department of Economic Development, but under an office called Consumer Protection. So what we would do is we fight for the rights of consumers in the market. Those would be your marginalized people, poor people that can't afford legal services. So I worked there for many, many years. Until eventually then I went and started my own law firm. When I speak about my own people, I don't necessarily mean black people. For me, when I speak about my own people, I speak about anyone that cannot gain access to justice. Because even in the office that I worked for, we had all kinds. We had white people, black people, Indian people. But it's so sad when you sit with a client and they have a case and they're crying in front of you because they know they can't take it to the magistrate's court or the high courts or the normal system to get the help that they need. And you find that they receive defective goods or defective service, or the person is taking their house because they can't afford to pay them. And you sitting there and you have to help this person. And sometimes you see that there's nothing I can do. So for me, those are the kind of people that I want to help. That's why I chose what I did, because I wanted to help those people that don't have the voice, and they don't have the money or the ability to access the justice system. So those are my people.
Nozipho shared that one of the many motivations for starting her own law firm was that she wanted to help those without the means to have qualified representation. She also wanted to be free of the politics that inherently came with working for the government. She believed that by venturing out on her own and partnering with like-minded people, she could make more of a difference. She also found that as a young attorney, female and black, came with significant challenges.
I started the law firm because when I went to work for that office, I realized one thing that was very critical and very unfair was that the people that were placed there didn't have legal qualifications. They didn't understand the act itself because now we are a custodian of this Consumer Protection Act. So I had to revamp the entire office, but you can only do this much. If you are a custodian of a piece of one legislation, you are only able to implement that one, So you'd find that someone would come in and say, I was unfairly dismissed at work, but there's nothing you can do. And as a result of that, I can't pay for my car that I took to be fixed. Now that already moves you away from the act that I'm working with. So I started my law firm because I felt that it's not fair and it's not enough what we're doing in that office. So I decided, I think the best way is for me to leave that space, start my own law firm because I've got the tools, and then partner with people that are like-minded to do what I want to do. The challenges that I've faced, number one, is not being taken seriously because, now, first of all, you are a woman and you are black And the legal fraternity in South Africa is very white, especially white men dominated, very old, very prestigious. So here comes this tiny, short 5.3 feet woman, And I remember this one time I went to court. I'll never forget that story. And I walked in and the presiding officer or judge asked me, "Excuse me, young lady, what are you doing here? Are you from the university?" I said, "No, actually not. I'm from..." And then I called the name of my law firm. I always says, "Oh, okay." And then I sit there and it was like, I can't believe that this child is in my court. And you could feel even the things that you are saying. Why do you do civil? Because it was a civil matter. Why do you do civil matters? Why don't you go to your people and do criminal matters? That would mean in my country, Black people, the poor and the ones that can afford. So, but those are the things that excite me because I like being the underdog. I actually do. So it didn't faze me. It made me more determined because, we're not there. It doesn't matter how you look or what people view, how people view you. As long as you can do the work and you can represent your clients the best of your ability, you represent your clients. That's the most important. The thing that inspires me is when I see my client and I meet with my client and I say, "We got your settlement." Oh, the look on their faces when that happens, it's amazing. I think you just want to see that over and over again. Like, even now when I'm here, there's a client of mine that just got a settlement. She's been fighting with a huge bus company that, drove over a car. It was an accident and they just denied liability. And this is like a young woman, Black woman. And they just said, "If you can't provide us with video evidence, sorry, we can't help you." And then I came in, I said, "Let's go for it." And they settled. So it's one of the things, even now, I was texting, asking them, "Have they paid you?" She said, "Not yet, but at least we've reached that settlement." So for me, that's so rewarding. And also the letters that I would get from my clients when I was working for the Consumer Protection Office, from these old ladies and say, "Thank you so much." They see you as this little child and sometimes they don't trust you can actually help them. And then when it does happen, it's like, "Oh, wow, you're so tiny, but..." You were able to help me. So for me, that inspires me. The ability to be, when you look at someone's face and you said, "We got it." They're going to compensate you. That's the best feeling you can ever get. If you want to start your own business, if you want to start your own firm, do it. You'll make mistakes. It's not going to be perfect. Sometimes there won't be finances. Like, I also go through those challenges. But the work that you do, there's no quantifying it. It's quantified by the look on your client's face when you say you've been able to help them. And even if you do fail, so what? It's better than the person who was sitting at home and not doing anything. I may not be the richest lawyer. I'll never get there. I'll never be the richest lawyer. But I'm rich because of the people that I've helped along the way. So do it. Just do it. Don't look at the naysayers. Don't look at who says, "No, you'll fail." It's fine. You'll fail. It's okay. You'll pick yourself up. We're here. And we'll support you. And let's do it. Let's do this. People need us. Partnerships. For me, that's the most important. Your network, your partners, because I know for a fact that I can't do this by myself. And I need more lawyers, young people that will come on board and be able and willing to take these free cases or little to next to nothing in terms of their fees. So if I can get partners with those people and even get government on board, because the other thing I realize is that the money is there. Our government has the money because they allocate these funds on a yearly basis and then they take them back because they're not used. So for me, the most important is not necessarily having money, but having partnerships and the people that are willing, that would take up these cases, even though they know it might be to their own costs or they might not even get a single cent out of it. And also partner with stakeholders like your Human Rights Commission, like I said, the gender equity and all those guys, to say, bring those cases that you feel that they're so complex that you can't do anything about, and then we will work together to solve them. One thing about South Africa is that it's got very good laws. The problem is access to them. So you'll find that we have this piece of legislation, beautiful piece of legislation. For example, I'll talk to one that I know the most, the Consumer Protection Act. The Consumer Protection Act says you have a right within this specific amount of time to get redress if maybe you got a defective service or a defective good. You have a right to a cooling off period. You have a right to say after 3 days, "No, I don't want this," or Just, you have a right to a clear contract in your understanding that it's written in clear language that you can understand. Now, the problem is that here comes this person, illiterate person, and they want to apply this, and they go into the market, and the supplier or the business person says, listen, not my problem. You bought it, you take it as it is, I'm not going to fix it. So now where does this person go? So those are the kind of unjust things that I would say we have problems within my country, or people don't even have the access to be able to get redress. So for me, those are the kinds of things that I want to fix more than anything. We've got a beautiful constitution. We've got all these beautiful laws that protect everyone, but there's no access to them. The poor, the marginalized. Like, there's this other case that I was speaking to someone from the Gender for Equality. So I think for me, the most important is, yes, you have got these good laws, but how we implement them is a big challenge in my country. And the access for people that don't have money to legal services is a huge challenge. I'd like to say to the other members or fellows in the YALI network, we need to work together. Otherwise, the reach or the scope of how much the people that we can reach is going to be limited if I try and do it by myself. But if we connect, if we network, and if we work together, we'll take this work much further. And especially the guys in the African continent, we actually need each other more than we need external stakeholders. And it's not everything is about money. Sometimes we just need to get our hands dirty. The money will find us there. And there is money in Africa. So people shouldn't stop being worried so much about money and just do the work. The money will come. It's okay. So for me, I think that's the most important. Let's work together. Let's network. Let's build coalitions. And let's help our people. That's why we're here.
Thank you, Nozipho, for sharing your story with the YALI Network and for the work you do in providing sustainable legal solutions and challenging unjust laws on behalf of those who most need an advocate. Be sure to come back for more inspiring stories from young African leaders on the YALI Voices podcast. Join the YALI Network at yali.state.gov and be a part of something bigger. Our theme music is Ego Happen by Grace Jerry and produced by the Presidential Precinct. The YALI Voices podcast is brought to you by the U.S. Department of State and is part of the Young African Leaders Initiative, which is funded by the U.S. government.